My name is Emily, and for years, my own family saw my suffering and decided it was a performance. A carefully crafted play for attention, an elaborate excuse to escape responsibilities, a dramatic flair I inherited from some distant, unknown relative they couldn't blame on themselves. They saw the dizziness that stole my balance, the nausea that chained me to the bathroom floor, the fatigue that made lifting a teacup feel like hoisting a boulder, and they reduced it to a character defect. Emily's being dramatic was the refrain of my youth and young adulthood. She just needs to push through it. It's all in her head. The first time a truly debilitating wave of vertigo hit, dropping me to the floor like a puppet with its strings cut, I was 25 years old. I was visiting my parents, sitting at their formal dining table, the heavy mahogany gleaming under the soft light of the chandelier. The room began to spin, not a gentle rotation, but a violent, sickening lurch. My vision blurred, a cold sweat broke out, and I pitched forward, my chair scraping loudly against the polished floor as I crumpled. Dinner plates scattered, the clatter echoing in the sudden silence. My mother, Carol, didn't rush to my side. Her immediate reaction was a sharp, scandalized gasp, followed by, "Good heavens, Emily, look at the mess. Are you ill? You're not coming down with something, are you? We have guests next week." That was my introduction to living with a body that betrayed me, and a family that refused to believe it. The incident was quickly smoothed over, attributed to low blood sugar or maybe I'd stood up too fast. Just another one of Emily's episodes. Over the next few years, the episodes became more frequent, more severe. I saw doctors, general practitioners, ENTs, neurologists. Test results came back normal or inconclusive. Anxiety, one doctor suggested, prescribing medication that did nothing for the spinning. Stress, another said, recommending yoga. Meanwhile, my life was shrinking. Holding down a job was a nightmare. The unpredictable nature of the attacks meant I missed work, missed social events, missed living. Friendships dwindled. Dates became impossible. I was trapped in a body I didn't understand, fighting a battle no one else could see. My younger sister, Brittany, thrived during this time. She was everything I felt I wasn't. Confident, popular, effortlessly successful in her career in fashion marketing. Her social media was a curated masterpiece, perfect outfits, glamorous parties, exotic vacations. She was the golden child, the one who made my parents proud, while I was the problematic one, the one who was always sick or tired or dizzy. The contrast was a constant, silent point of comparison, always leaving me feeling inadequate. My struggles were an inconvenience to their polished family image, a smudge on their otherwise perfect portrait. 7 years after that first public collapse, I found a specialist, a neurologist who listened patiently as I described the sensation of constant movement, the visual sensitivity, the brain fog, the crushing fatigue. He didn't dismiss me. He ran specialized tests, spent hours reviewing my history. His diagnosis: persistent postural perceptual dizziness, or PPPD. It was a chronic neurological disorder affecting the vestibular system, often triggered by an acute event but becoming persistent. It was real, it had a name, and blessedly it was treatable with a combination of specific vestibular therapy, medication, and lifestyle adjustments. There was hope. Armed with this diagnosis and a treatment plan, I thought things would change. I thought explaining it to my family, showing them the medical literature, the specialists' reports would finally bring understanding. I was wrong. It was another Sunday dinner at Mom's. The same gleaming table, a different roast. I gripped the back of my chair, the familiar, nauseating sway a constant companion. "Mom, Brittany," I began, my voice steadier this time, fortified by the validation of a diagnosis. "I had a difficult episode today, but I saw the specialist this week. He's certain it's persistent postural perceptual dizziness, PPPD. It's a chronic neurological disorder, not anxiety or stress." My mother, Carol, placed her fork down with deliberate precision. "Emily, honey, are we still fixated on this? You've seen so many doctors. They all give you different ideas. It's quite frankly exhausting." Her tone was weary, as if my illness were a burden to her. "They say it's stress, migraines, inner ear issues that are supposed to resolve. Perhaps if you just tried harder to manage your anxiety, as Dr. Lee suggested, those pills he gave you." But this doctor specialized in vestibular disorders. "He understands this condition," I pleaded, a familiar ache of desperation rising in my chest. "He ran specialized tests. He confirmed it. It's a physical disorder, Mom, not just in my head." I pushed a folder across the table. He gave me information. There's a treatment program, vestibular rehabilitation therapy combined with medication. It's a specific course, but it works for many people. Brittany, looking radiant in a new dress, didn't even glance at the folder. She sipped her wine, a slight, dismissive smile playing on her lips. "Oh, here we go," she drawled, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Another expensive diagnosis that requires a specialist and a special program. Isn't it just fascinating, Emily, how your health crises always seem to align perfectly with significant events in our lives? Like the chronic fatigue right before my big promotion dinner, or the debilitating migraines the week of Mom's retirement party." She paused, letting the implication hang in the air, heavy and suffocating. "And now, suddenly, just weeks before my wedding, you have a neurological disorder that requires an expensive, intensive program. It's almost like a pattern of wanting attention." A fresh wave of dizziness made the room swim. I closed my eyes for a moment, fighting the urge to gag. "That's not fair, Brittany. My symptoms are real. I have documentation, test results, a diagnosis." Oh, the mysterious test results that never actually show anything concrete enough for any normal doctor to give you a definitive label. Brittany scoffed, her voice hardening. "Valid enough to get you out of helping with wedding seating charts, I suppose, or my bachelorette weekend in Miami." She exchanged a look with Mom, who offered that same small, sympathetic smile that never reached her eyes. It was a practiced look, perfected over years of dismissing my complaints. Mom chimed in, her tone shifting to that sickeningly sweet, patronizing voice she reserved for what she deemed my dramas. "Emily, sweetie, your sister has a point, whether you like her delivery or not. While you've been focusing on researching and diagnosing your various ailments, Brittany's been building her life, her career, planning a beautiful wedding, a solid future. Perhaps instead of chasing expensive specialists and indulging these invisible problems, you should focus on managing your stress, finding some structure, and contributing more positively to the family." Contributing, the word felt like a physical blow. My stomach churned, a bitter mix of nausea and righteous indignation. "I work harder than you know just to function, just to get out of bed on some days, to fight through the dizziness and brain fog. I've saved money, I have a plan for this therapy, for my future. A plan that probably involves us co-signing some ridiculous loan you'll never be able to repay, knowing your track record with holding down a consistent job with all your episodes." Brittany cut in, her voice dripping with undisguised disdain. "Honestly, Emily, when are you going to stop playing the victim? You're 32 years old. It's high time you grew up and took responsibility instead of constantly looking for an excuse or for someone to rescue you." Mom stood up then, smoothing her elegant dress, the picture of weary disappointment. "Your father would be so utterly disappointed in this behavior, Emily. He always believed in self-reliance, in pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. We just want you to be happy, to be well, truly well. Free from all this apparent suffering. Have you considered perhaps a life coach, someone to help you overcome this persistent negativity, this focus on your ailments?" I looked at them, really looked at them through the blur of dizziness and unshed tears. These two women, my mother and sister, who shared my blood, yet seemed fundamentally incapable of offering basic empathy or belief. They saw my pain, my genuine struggle with a chronic, disorienting condition, and twisted it into something calculated, manipulative, a performance designed to disrupt their perfect, problem-free lives. In that moment, the familiar, aching hurt solidified into something cold and hard within me. A resolute, quiet fury bloomed where desperation had once resided. "You're right," I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the physical turmoil and the storm raging inside me. "It is time I grew up. Time I stopped clinging to the outdated notion that family automatically means support, understanding, or even basic belief. Time I stopped looking for validation and help from people who clearly have no intention of offering it." "Don't be dramatic, Emily," Brittany said dismissively, waving a hand as if swatting away an annoying insect. "Just go home, take some Advil and try to relax." "Too late for that, isn't it?" I replied, walking towards the door on unsteady legs. The room was still swaying, a visual metaphor for my life, but my path forward felt suddenly, startlingly clear. "You've already written my role in this family drama, haven't you? The fragile, attention-seeking, perpetually ill one. The burden. But perhaps it's time for a different act. One where I write my own script, choose my own role." I walked out of the dining room, out of their pristine house, leaving the silence, their cold judgment, and years of unspoken pain behind. The sting of their betrayal was a physical ache in my chest, but it was quickly being eclipsed by a burgeoning sense of fierce, defiant independence. The next few months were a period of intense focus and forced independence. Working from home wasn't just a preference, it was a necessity dictated by my PPPD. The unpredictable episodes of severe dizziness, the brain fog that made clear thinking a Herculean effort, the crushing fatigue that could strike without warning, these made a traditional office job, with its rigid schedule and demanding commute, impossible. But I refused to be defeated. I was good at organizing, at bringing structure to chaos, skills I'd honed over a decade of trying to manage my own unpredictable health. I discovered a talent for remote project management and consulting, leveraging these skills. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't the high-powered career my parents had envisioned, or the glittering social life Brittany flaunted, but it was mine. It provided a sense of purpose, and crucially, a sense of control I hadn't felt in years. I poured every ounce of energy I had into building something. I took online courses in business management, digital marketing, and advanced project tools. My apartment became my office, a quiet space where I could manage my workload around the unpredictable demands of my illness. There were days I worked from bed, laptop propped on my knees, fighting through a flare-up. Days I had to cancel calls last minute, sending apologetic emails to clients. But I was transparent about my remote work setup, focusing on delivering results rather than adhering to traditional norms. Liam, a colleague I'd connected with in an online professional group for remote workers, became an unexpected source of support and collaboration. We were on opposite coasts, but we clicked instantly. He was building his own freelance business and understood the challenges of navigating the gig economy. We'd often work late, our virtual presence a silent companionship as we typed away on separate projects. Still burning the midnight oil he'd message in the chat window that was always open between us. Wouldn't have it any other way, I'd type back, a small, private smile on my face. Dizzy night, might as well make it productive. You. Client proposal deadline, he'd reply, fueling up on questionable coffee. Glad I'm not the only workaholic online. Liam was different from anyone in my past. He listened without judgment. When I eventually, cautiously, shared more about my PPPD, he didn't recoil or offer unsolicited, dismissive advice. He offered genuine empathy. He shared resources, articles about managing chronic conditions in the workplace, links to online communities for professionals with disabilities. It was in one of these low-key, supportive Facebook groups that I saw a post lamenting the difficulty of finding reliable professional support, virtual assistants, project managers, consultants, who actually understood the unique challenges of working while managing unpredictable health issues. The author spoke of missed deadlines, lack of flexibility, and the emotional exhaustion of constantly having to explain or apologize for symptoms. It sparked an idea, a fire that felt both terrifying and exhilarating. My own experience navigating the professional world with PPPD had given me invaluable insights. I knew the need for flexibility, clear communication, and a deep well of patience, both for myself and my clients. I had built a system that worked for me. Could I use that system to help others like me? I looked at my small savings account. The money I had set aside, painstakingly saved dollar by dollar, for the vestibular therapy program the specialist had recommended. It wasn't the original $20,000 sum, but it was enough for a few months of intensive therapy, a significant chunk of my hard-earned income. It wasn't enough for the full treatment, not yet, but it was a start. Now I saw it as a different kind of start. An investment. An investment in myself, yes, but also an investment in a future that was entirely my own, built independently of the people who had doubted me, who had minimized my pain. I drained the account. It was terrifying, that leap of faith, emptying my safety net for this unproven idea. But the alternative remaining beholden to the idea that I needed my family's financial help or emotional validation to get the treatment I needed was unthinkable. They had shown me their limits. Now I would show myself mine, or rather, my lack of them when fueled by purpose. I launched a small consulting firm from my spare bedroom, branding it as a service specifically designed for individuals and small businesses navigating chronic illness, disability, or other significant life challenges. My mission was to provide reliable, understanding, and flexible professional support, It felt like a defiant act, a reclamation of my own narrative. Every client I took on, every successful project completed despite a flare-up, was a small victory, not just for them but for me. Testimonials started coming in, warm and validating. Emily understands the unique struggles, one client wrote. She doesn't just manage projects, she manages the challenges of living with chronic illness with grace, expertise, and genuine empathy. Another shared, finally, someone who doesn't look at me with pity or doubt when I mention a bad day. Emily just adjusts the plan and keeps things moving. With each success, each word of appreciation, I felt a quiet, unbreakable strength building within me. I wasn't cured, the dizziness was still there, a constant companion, the fatigue a shadow, but I was no longer defined by my illness or my family's cruel disbelief. I was building something real, something that helped others, and in doing so, I was finally, truly helping myself. My phone rang less and less. I politely declined Mom's calls, archived Brittany's passive-aggressive texts about family gatherings I wasn't invited to, filtering through mutual contacts who forwarded them with varying degrees of awkwardness. Her wedding came and went. I sent a generic card, a polite facade of familial obligation. No explanation for my absence was offered or, surprisingly, demanded. It was as if, having cast me in the role of the estranged, dramatic sister, they were content with my absence, as long as it fit the script. The silence that settled in its wake felt less like abandonment and more like liberation. A heavy cloak I hadn't realized I was wearing was finally lifted from my shoulders. 3 years passed in a blur of hard work, growth, and quiet satisfaction. The small consulting firm had grown significantly. I had hired several associates, all of whom either lived with chronic conditions themselves or had direct experience supporting loved ones who did. They understood the mission on a fundamental level. We were a team that didn't just tolerate limitations. We understood them and built strategies around them. Our client list expanded, our reputation for reliable, empathetic service spreading through word of mouth and online communities. I had bought a small condo, a place entirely my own, purchased with money I had earned, managed, and grown through sheer grit and determination. It wasn't luxurious, but it represented my independence, my self-sufficiency. I still had difficult days, still navigated the world with that persistent sense of motion, still felt the fatigue bite deep, but I had built a life around it. A full, meaningful life that existed entirely outside the confines of my family's judgment. During this time, I occasionally saw glimpses of Brittany's life online. Her carefully curated social media continued to portray a life of effortless success and glamour. Photos of exotic vacations, exclusive events, and eventually the launch of her own online luxury boutique, plastered across her feeds with breathless enthusiasm. It all looked so perfect, so shiny. I felt no envy, only a detached sense of observation. It was a world away from the quiet, authentic community I was building. Then came the call that fractured the silence. It was my cousin, Ryan. He was the family bridge, the one who managed to stay connected with everyone without getting fully sucked into the dramas. Hey, his voice was cautious, a little strained. Long time. Look, something's come up. Mom and Brittany have been asking about you. A lot, specifically about your business and your finances. How are you doing really? Like, really doing? A knot of unease formed in my stomach. I hadn't spoken to either Mom or Brittany directly in well over a year, maybe closer to 2. The polite distance had become the norm. Ryan, hey, I'm doing well actually. Business is good, really good, expanding. Why are they asking? Is everything okay? Well, he hesitated, and I could hear him taking a breath, preparing himself. Things aren't great with Brittany, at all. You know her online boutique. Her big launch last year, I nodded, picturing the glossy posts. Yeah, well, turns out it was. Less successful than she let on. Bad business model, overspending, issues with suppliers she couldn't smooth talk her way out of. It's messy, like legally messy. Lawsuits, creditors calling. She's facing bankruptcy, maybe worse. Over the next few weeks, the emails started. First from Mom, vaguely fishing for information, layered with hints about difficult times and the unwavering importance of family sticking together through thick and thin, no matter what past disagreements there might have been. I replied politely, briefly, keeping it professional, offering no details about the true extent of my business success. Then the emails became more direct. A long, rambling message from Mom, detailing Brittany's predicament, the crippling debt, the aggressive lawyers, the potential loss of everything she owned, even the apartment mom was helping her with. Buried within the carefully worded paragraphs, the request began to take shape, at first subtly, then with increasing desperation. Hints of a temporary bridge loan, an investment in family, helping Brittany get back on her feet. Finally, the email arrived that laid it all bare. Subject line: Family crisis, need your immediate help. It was from Mom, carbon copied to a few key family members. It detailed the total amount needed to settle with the primary creditors and cover the initial legal fees to avoid devastating personal bankruptcy and potential further action. The number stood out, stark and demanding, amidst the flowery language about familial love and duty: $500,000. My breath hitched. $500,000. A sum that represented years of my own relentless work, careful saving, and calculated risk. A sum that, ironically, was far more than the cost of the therapy they had scoffed at years ago. The sheer audacity of the request, after years of dismissal and doubt, was staggering. Mom's emails and calls became relentless after that. Her voice, usually so composed and controlled, was strained, edged with panic, and a manufactured fragility I recognized instantly. "Emily, honey, please," she'd plead over the phone. We need your help. Brittany is in serious, serious trouble. These lawyers are threatening everything. The house might be at risk if we have to help her alone. We don't know what to do." "What kind of help are you expecting, Mom?" I asked during one of these calls, my voice flat, carefully devoid of the turmoil churning inside me. I was sitting at my desk, the city lights visible outside my window, a testament to the life I had built far from their world. "Well, we know your business has been doing so well," she said, her tone shifting back to that familiar, cloying sweetness that always preceded a request or manipulation. "And you have that lovely condo. And we heard about your success from Ryan and your investments. If you could just help Brittany out just until she gets back on her feet, it would be a loan, of course. Just temporary." "A loan," I repeated, the word feeling foreign and absurd coming from her, given our history. I thought back to that morning on her kitchen floor, the pain ripping through me, begging for a cosign on a legitimate, necessary loan for my health, a loan I had the means to repay. Like the loan for my therapy you wouldn't cosign because you didn't think my illness was real enough, because you thought it was elective or speculative. "Emily, that was different. That was years ago. We didn't understand," she insisted, her voice rising in pitch. Well, it wasn't life or death. This is an emergency. Your sister could lose everything. Her apartment, her reputation, her entire future is on the line. This is real, tangible trouble." "Funny," I said, a cold calm settling over me, chilling the hot wave of anger that had initially flared at the $500,000 figure. I seem to recall hearing a lot about invisible problems and dramatic behavior causing unnecessary fuss. Wasn't Brittany the one who told everyone who would listen, Aunt Carol, Uncle George, her friends, your friends, that I was faking my symptoms to get out of responsibility or to avoid social events? Wasn't she the one who told you, Mom, repeatedly, that you shouldn't believe me about my dizziness, that it was just anxiety from being lazy or trying to steal attention? I pressed on, years of suppressed pain and indignity fueling my words, making my voice clear and strong. "Ryan told me, Mom. Years ago, he overheard her bragging about how she saved the family from my pathological need for attention by convincing people I was faking it. Wasn't she the one who implied to my potential employer, that consulting firm downtown I almost got a job with years ago, that my health issues made me unreliable, unstable? Ryan heard her talking about that too. She actively worked to undermine me, Mom, to discredit my experience, my integrity, my very sanity." There was a heavy, stunned silence on the other end of the line. The only sound was Mom's shaky breathing. Then Brittany's voice, thin and shaky, came on the line. She must have been listening on speakerphone or Mom had handed her the receiver. "Emily, please." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I made mistakes, I was scared. I didn't understand back then. But I'm your sister, you can't abandon me now, not when everything is falling apart like this." "Abandon you," I echoed, the word bitter on my tongue. "Where were you, Brittany, when I was collapsing on floors, when the world literally felt like it was spinning out of control, when every doctor except one dismissed me, and the only people who should have cared told me I was making it up? Where was my sister when my own mother believed I was pathological and manipulative because of the cruel narrative you deliberately created and spread? You chose to make my life harder, Brittany. You chose to isolate me with your lies and gossip, actively working to undermine my credibility and my chances, all because my illness was inconvenient for your perfect image and maybe, just maybe, you resented any attention that wasn't on you. But, but this is different, Brittany cried, her voice rising in panic, losing its fragile tone and cracking with desperation. This is a real emergency. I could lose everything. My apartment, everything I worked for. My future. My struggle was real, I said, my voice firm, unwavering, a rock against the tide of their panic. My pain was real. The impact on my life, my career prospects, my relationships, my mental health, that was all devastatingly, undeniably real. And because you, Brittany, and you, Mom, chose not to believe me, because you chose to gaslight me for years, convincing yourselves and anyone who would listen that I was fabricating my pain, I had to build my own safety net. I had to build this business, this life, entirely on my own, without your support, your belief, or your help. Without any financial cushion or safety net besides the one I painstakingly built myself. Are you saying you won't help us? Mom asked, her voice sharp with disbelief, as if the very idea were an unthinkable betrayal of familial duty, a cosmic injustice. After everything we've done for you, the home we gave you, the clothes on your back, the education, everything you've done, I laughed again, a short, humorless sound that held years of pain and irony. Like teaching me, through repeated, painful lessons, exactly what it feels like to be fundamentally unsupported and disbelieved by the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally. Like showing me precisely how little my well-being, my reality, my struggle, mattered compared to maintaining your perfect facade and Brittany's convenient narrative. Like forcing me to become self-reliant to the extreme because relying on you meant being constantly let down. My voice softened, but the steel beneath was evident, unbreakable. Yes, Mom, that's exactly what I'm saying. I won't give you $500,000. I won't give you any money. There was a sharp intake of breath from Brittany, followed by a choked sob. You're heartless, she screamed, a raw, desperate sound filled with sudden, stark fear. You're a cruel, selfish monster. Your own sister is about to lose everything and you won't lift a finger. No, I corrected her, the peace I felt deep in my core countering her fury. My gaze drifted to the framed photo on my desk, my first employee, Sarah, a woman with MS, beaming after successfully completing a major project. This was my real network now. I'm not heartless, I'm free. Free from your expectations, free from your judgment, free from the soul-crushing need for your approval or belief. You taught me a harsh lesson about what family meant to you. You taught me to rely on myself, to trust my own experience even when everyone around me was telling me I was crazy. You taught me how to build something real and strong from the ground up when the most important people in my life decided I was fabricating my pain for attention. And I learned that lesson incredibly well. I paused, letting my words sink into the stunned silence on their end of the line. You chose your narrative then, Brittany. You and Mom decided who I was and what my struggles meant. You decided my very real illness was fake, a bid for attention, a convenient excuse. You profited from that narrative, maintaining your comfort and reputation while I struggled alone. Now you're living with the consequences of that narrative, and I won't be clearing up the mess you made. I ended the call, my hand steady, the silence that followed not empty, but filled with the quiet hum of my own hard-won independence and the echo of their stunned silence. The fallout was immediate and intense. My phone became a buzzing, vibrating source of stress. Angry texts flooded in, a torrent of accusations and insults. You evil, heartless monster, from Brittany. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us. From Mom. Then the frantic voicemails started, shifting between desperate pleas and furious demands. Other family members, likely prompted by Mom and Brittany, reached out, expressing concern and subtly, or not so subtly, guilting me. Family helps family, Emily, my Aunt Carol, my mother's sister, said with a sigh in one strained call. Whatever happened in the past, Brittany is in real trouble now, and you have the means to help. But the foundation of my life was no longer built on their approval or their version of family duty. It was built on the solid ground of my own hard work, my own truth, and the community I had found and built. Their attempts at manipulation felt hollow, lacking the power they once held over me. Brittany, in her desperation, made a crucial mistake. She took to social media, her platform of choice, to air her grievances. She posted a tearful video, carefully framed to look vulnerable and heartbroken, speaking of a devastating business loss and being abandoned by family in her time of greatest need. She didn't name me explicitly at first, but the hints were clear to anyone who knew our family dynamic. She painted a picture of herself as the victim of circumstance and my implied cold indifference. Liam messaged me the next morning. You need to see this. Brittany's gone public. She's trying to trash you online again, but something else is happening. I braced myself and opened the link he sent. There was Brittany's video, already gaining traction. But beneath it, something remarkable was unfolding. My clients, members of the online chronic illness communities I was a part of, and even some people who just followed the story through Ryan or other connections, were pushing back. Abandoned, like she abandoned her sister when she was desperately ill. One comment read, quickly accumulating likes. I've heard about this family. The sister spread rumors for years that Emily was faking her debilitating illness. Another added, Emily built her business specifically because her own family dismissed her chronic pain. She helps people like me. She's not the villain here. Someone else posted a link to one of my blog posts about medical gaslighting and family dynamics. Read this before you judge Emily. Her privilege was built from being denied basic support. The narrative Brittany was so carefully trying to craft was being dismantled in real time by a community that understood the true meaning of invalidation and betrayal. Justice for Emily started trending in chronic illness circles. People shared my website, my articles, testimonials from my clients. The story of the sister who was dismissed and sabotaged, who then built her own success and refused to use it to bail out the person who hurt her, resonated deeply with thousands. Media outlets, seeing the viral nature of the story, started contacting me. Requests for interviews poured in from major news websites, podcasts, even television shows interested in covering the intersection of invisible illness, family dynamics, and the devastating impact of medical gaslighting. It was overwhelming, but I saw an opportunity. An opportunity not for revenge, but for advocacy on a massive scale. I chose my platforms carefully, focusing not on tearing down my family, but on shining a light on the reality of living with a condition that others couldn't see or chose not to believe. I spoke about the profound emotional and practical impact of having your lived experience denied, especially by the people who were supposed to be your closest support system. I talked about the isolation, the self-doubt it instilled, and the immense difficulty of navigating systems, medical, professional, social, when your reality is constantly being questioned. I wrote an open letter, published on my company's blog and shared widely, titled The Cost of Disbelief. What happens when it's all in your head meets a $500,000 crisis. It detailed my journey, the years of unexplained symptoms, the dismissal by doctors and family, the diagnosis of PPPD, the active sabotage by my sister, the struggle to build my business from nothing, and the sudden, audacious demand for $500,000 from the very people who had abandoned me. I didn't ask for pity. I asked for understanding and validation for everyone who had been through similar experiences. I wrote, they told me my illness wasn't real. They told me I was dramatic, manipulative, seeking attention. They actively worked to undermine my credibility. Now, facing a very real, tangible crisis of their own making, they demand that I use the resources I built from the ashes of their disbelief to bail them out. They expect me to burn down the house I built because they set fire to their own. My answer is no. My success is not an emergency fund for the people who caused my emergency. The response was enormous. The letter went viral, shared across social media platforms, discussed in forums, picked up by news outlets. The narrative was no longer Brittany's carefully constructed victimhood. It was the powerful, resonant story of resilience, truth, and the cost of profound betrayal. Amidst the media requests and messages of support pouring in, I received another email from Mom. It was contrite, tearful, filled with apologies and admissions that she should have listened, that she was wrong about my illness. It was a carefully worded apology, focusing more on her own perceived failure to understand than the actual harm her and Brittany's actions had caused. It felt hollow, self-serving. Too little, too late. The damage was done, the trust irrevocably broken. I didn't reply. Brittany tried calling again a few weeks later. Her voice on the voicemail was smaller than I'd ever heard it, the manufactured confidence gone, replaced by a fragile blend of fear and what sounded like genuine remorse. Emily, she whispered, I messed up. I'm so sorry for what I said about you, about your health. I didn't understand, I was wrong. I listened to the message, standing by the window, watching the city lights. The dizziness was still there, a familiar undercurrent, but it didn't consume me. I know you're sorry, Brittany, I said to the empty room, but sorry doesn't erase years of doubt and pain. It doesn't magic away the consequences of your actions. It doesn't rebuild what you helped to tear down. I didn't call her back. A few months later, after the media storm had subsided into a steady breeze of ongoing interest in speaking invitations, I launched the Chronic Pain and Invisible Illness Justice Fund, a grant program through my business. Funded by a portion of our profits and donations inspired by my story, its purpose was to provide financial assistance to individuals with chronic conditions who faced similar disbelief or lacked the resources to access necessary therapies, diagnostic testing, or support services. It was my way of building the safety net I never had for others who were still falling through the cracks of a system and a society that often failed to see their pain. Ryan visited my new condo a few weeks after I moved in. It was smaller than Mom's sprawling house, but it was light-filled, quiet, and entirely mine. He brought a bottle of wine and a small, framed photo collage. He'd made a picture of Brittany's now-defunct, glossy boutique website side by side with a screenshot of the Justice for Emily hashtag trending on Twitter. Thought this belonged here, he said with a wry smile, handing it to me. A reminder. A reminder of what? I asked, smiling back. That sometimes, he said, the best revenge isn't revenge at all, it's just building something they couldn't break and living well despite them. I hung the frame in my office, a quiet, powerful testament. My book, tentatively titled The Spinning World, Building Stability in the Face of Invisible Illness and Visible Doubt, was in the works. Its purpose wasn't to settle scores, but to share my story and offer hope and validation to others. My family was still dealing with the fallout of Brittany's business failure. I heard bits and pieces through the grapevine. Mom was helping Brittany, stretching her own finances thin. The large sum they needed hadn't materialized, least of all from me. Their carefully constructed world of appearances had cracked, revealing the stress and instability beneath. Sometimes, late at night, when the dizziness felt particularly insistent, or the fatigue was a heavy cloak, I'd think about that dinner, that kitchen floor, their dismissive words. The pain, both physical and emotional, was still a part of my story, but it was no longer the dominant theme. It was a chapter I had survived, a catalyst that had, unexpectedly, led me to build a life more authentic and fulfilling than any I could have imagined within their gilded cage. I had lost a certain version of a family, but I had found my own strength, my own voice, and a community that saw me, believed me, and stood with me. The world might still spin sometimes, but my foundation was solid. I was free.